Hi everyone, Steve here. Welcome to this edition of Monday Morning Musing. We are continuing on taking a look at Paul's use of the terms of body, soul, and spirit. One of the things that we have to remember is that Paul, and this is going to be a surprise for some of us, never in any of his letters, never, and never is a pretty definitive term, never speaks of the survival of a human being in either existence as a soul or as a spirit. Otherwise, he never speaks of a human being living in a disembodied state after death. Now, it's annoyingly vague because he doesn't go into great depth about how that happens. He talks about the first resurrection and the second resurrection and the resurrection out of the resurrection. But as a good Pharisee, or someone with a Pharisaical worldview, the idea of human existence disembodied would have been a metaphor, an equivalent metaphor would be to be considered unclothed or to be naked. And the idea of disembodied human existence is a 100% Greek philosophy idea, and that's why Paul resists it so strongly, because of Paul's conviction about the resurrection. So one thing for sure, he would have never accepted a doctrine of a disembodied state of human existence. Perhaps we could wish that he explained it a little better, go into a little more depth, but that is a fact, and you can check out the New Testament on that for yourself. So for Paul, human existence, this side of the grave and the other side of the grave, is always in a bodily form. Now, the simplest example is Jesus post-resurrection. After his death, he appeared unto them bodily. They could touch him, he ate, he drank. He wasn't a ghost. They thought they saw a ghost, but he wasn't a ghost. He exists in bodily form, in some sort of bodily existence that transcends the present state of our quantum universe. Otherwise, it's not governed by the same rules of physics and mortality that this universe is. But it is a bodily existence. And that's why the fundamental belief system of the baseline after Jesus is Lord, there's really only two confessions that make a Christian. Jesus is Lord and belief in the bodily resurrection of the dead. Not just at the end, but that when I die, I don't float around in the heavens like in an invisible state, an invisible soul in a disembodied state. There's some sort of embodied existence post-grave. That's very basic to Paul. And the term that Paul uses in the rest of his letters for body is Soma. And some people make a real big deal of, spirit, soul, and body. We've talked about that. And the body is at the bottom of this partitioned, three-part partition being. That's not how Paul uses the word soma. Soma in Pauline use can mean different things. It can mean just my physical being, the outward part of my existence. But even then, it's not referred negatively as something that is to be discarded like a paper cup. And soma, body, is virtually equivalent for the word I, myself, the totality of my being. For example, this is the simplest verse. When Paul says, I present my body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. Well, does that mean my mind isn't included and my emotions aren't included and my intellect isn't included and my feelings aren't? Of course not. It's a metaphor. It's an image for the entirety of being. So when Paul uses the word soma in his epistles, it's an essential element of what it means to be human. You cannot say what so many charismatics say, that you are a spirit who has a soul and who lives in a body. That is foreign Greek corruption, Greek philosophy, and a distortion of Paul's teaching in 1 Thessalonians. A human being is an indivisible entity. Like I mentioned earlier, Paul holds to a modified unitary view of a human being. Otherwise, a human being is a unit, body, soul, and spirit. One unit. And really very Trinitarian in a metaphorical application. Each part distinct but inseparable from the rest. And other places where Paul uses body, and it's referring to the whole person, not just your physical being, is like 1 Corinthians 13, 1 Corinthians 9, 1 Corinthians 7, all through Paul's writings when he speaks of Soma. It is the vehicle through which human existence is expressed in time and space, and it includes all those other dimensions. So for Paul, humanity, what it means in Pauline psychology, humanity cannot be so neatly categorized, partitioned, stacked, and put together as pieces. And we have this piece, that's the piece that relates to God. And this, that's why the terms are interchangeable at times. And then sometimes they're not. And that's why it's complicated. And that's why it's difficult to understand. Because of the broadness and the flexibility in which Paul uses these terms. So all I want to leave you with today is that Paul did not denigrate, and he did not the body, Soma. He did not make an element in a hierarchy, and it speaks of the totality of being. The I, myself, can be described in the scripture as Soma, or body. And I'll see you next time.